In today's New York Times, there's an article in the section called Taking Notes, the editorial page, editor's blog. And this one is by Vikas Bahaha. And it's entitled, What If We Just Give the Poor Money? Another thing is this, if you give the money with no strings attached. In other words, don't say how to spend the money. That's a parallel article. So they're asking, if you give the poor money, will you be able to reduce poverty? And there was this study done by Innovations for Poverty Action, a non-profit research organization, that found that if you give 300 to 1100 to 500 poor Kenyan families, it did help to reduce poverty. It improved living conditions and increased investment in livestock and small businesses. Now, I'm not sure if this is US or Kenyan money, because it also talks about in Brazil, Mexico, and I'm not sure if they're talking about their local currency or whether they're talking about US dollars, because if you're talking US dollars, it starts to make a lot of sense to me now. Nevertheless, in many of these third world countries, oh yeah, even Brazil is third world. I think Mexico might be also. The average per capita sometimes is almost between 500 in Haiti, 500 to at least $1,200. Even I think in the Dominican Republic, it's that kind of money. So if an individual is going to be making, after working for the whole year, or just however they get this money, between 500 to 1,200, no, I think it's in thousands in Puerto Rico, in Haiti. But anyway, that kind of money, if it's US, is a lot of money. And I'm not sure whether this article in the New York Times was trying to project it here to America, stating that perhaps if we give people money without any strings attached, how it could improve their lives and reduce poverty and all this kind of investment in some garden or livestock or in some small business or whatever. And some of these places, I mean, that kind of money makes a big difference. But let me say it right away that in America and Canada, this is also known as transport payments. And every family gets, if they have if they qualify for certain, like if they have children in Canada, if you pay rent, your income is beneath a certain level, you get I think $250. That was way back in the 90s. So they give them money. Now, let me compare some of these activities you have here. Would $300 to $1,100 a year help anybody here in America to get better housing? I mean, that's nothing. That $1,100 might be just 1 month's rent, or not even a full month's rent. Will it help to reduce hunger? Well, a lot of people here in America are hungry simply because they have different priorities. They spend the money differently. I mean, people are saying like, government, if the money you give us, let's go to the store instead, it's going to make a difference. Well, these same people from Kenya, Brazil, and Mexico, if they come up here and they get this kind of money that the government gives people here, they still will be able to survive because number one, they could cook, and chicken is so cheap. Greens are so cheap. They will, you know, instead probably even buy meat, they will buy like corn and lentils and split peas and so forth, and so it will make a difference for them. But here in American, you know, it's not going to work. But I put an article up on YouTube, and I was saying that, look, it was in relationship to the 1% versus the 99%. And I was saying that if you give the 99%, every one of them $10 million, for example, or $1 million, you know, very quickly, many of them are going to be broke again. Many of them are going to be back on Skid Row. And guess what? The 1% going to get much of that money again. Because I'm not saying the 1% push drugs or whatever. But even look in New York South. In the 90s and 80s when they were given food stamps as dollars. There was a food stamp dollar. Okay, and probably it was comparable to a US dollar. What happened was that the drug dealer had a whole bunch of that. And they started to crack down on them. How you get all this money? Because each person might only get, say, $250, but this file has like 5,000 of that. And then they discover that they come in to buy drugs and so forth. And a whole bunch of other things that they want outside of being able to buy food. So I'm not sure what was the point of this article. And say, for example, can you take $300 to $500 and invest in livestock? I mean, how are you gonna do that? You have to have a place to do it. In Kenya, there's so much land free that you could go and squat in the government land and start a farm out in the government land. It might be no problem. And this brings me to another thing here. A lot of the Mexican, third world, Latin American thing is encroaching into America, in which now people are thinking that they need to have a little garden at home. I mean, you know, maybe because of the hard times and so forth and people are not working, but the idea was that here farmers pay taxes and all these corporations pay taxes and they give people tax breaks and the sort of child tax credits and other financial incentives, which were coming from food stamp, which was coming from the rich to the poor. It's a transfer payment. And these people are, you know, planting corn and they're rearing chicken and livestock and so forth. So you can go down and compete with them. But the idea was that if you're working, it's cheaper to buy in the store than to raise your own livestock. Because the time you have to invest, the feed you have to buy, the livestock you have to purchase, it ends up costing you more because you're just doing like 12 chicken. Whereas these guys doing 1 million. And sometimes they control feed production and all kind of ways. So they have this vertical integration in which you know, they from the feed right up to the medicine, all that. They have interest in it and they invest in those areas, so they're getting it dog cheap, so that we could get chicken 50 cents a pound perhaps. But if I were to grow it in my own yard, it might cost $5 a pound. But here in America, because that was true and these people could do it cheaper, we let the big shots and these commercial people do the farming or whatever, and we try to get 2-3 jobs so we get cash to do whatever else we want. And in those places, another thing, can you take $300 to $1,100 and invest in a business here in America? What kind of business are you going to invest in? Except maybe pushing drugs or doing something illegal. But to start a business, you have to have a business license. You have to have a place where it is zoned. You have to pay rent. You have to pay taxes. You have to supplies and utilities and all this kind of stuff. That kind of money can't do nothing here. But maybe in Kenya, you could open in your home some little grocery store. That's no problem. But you can't do that here in America. There are codes. Okay? So I'm not sure what this article is about, and I don't know why Vikas waste our time with this article, because as it looks, it's like, I don't see what's the point. Okay, it's happening over there. I know it's happening over there. I grew up in the third world, and I know that we had garden and we had some chicken. Other people had cows and sheep and all that stuff. So that's to help subsistence. That's to help to, you know, take you over the line, and not necessarily to help you to be beating poverty. This is just to survive. Okay, so I think that this thing with this 99% versus 1%, it seems as though it's going to try to generate a class warfare. But mind the way, isn't this what the socialists were expecting? A class warfare between the haves and the have-nots, and between the workers and the owners of the production. But it hasn't happened. Communism and socialism, you know, for all purposes, are dead. So this 1% versus the 99%, I would also tell you that that's not significant, because the issues that can bring the world down is not issues between black and white, poor and rich. It's going to be between evil and good. Folks that evil is going to be the majority, and they're going to try to exterminate the minority who are good, who are God's people. And you know that, again, God's going to protect his people, okay? So what if we just gave the poor money? It doesn't make a difference here in America, because folks it's not sufficient. $500, $1,100 is not sufficient here. The government is already doing transfer payments in food stamps, tax refund, subsidized education, transportation, so many different ways the government is already transferring monies. So maybe this person needs to open the eye and see that it's happening in America, and it's happening in third world, and they selected 500 people. If they give it to everybody, as I said, in Brazil, many of these countries that do carnival, people rather don't buy clothes and food and pay the rent just to play carnival. Okay, get a nice costume and jump up in the street for the day, for the weekend of this carnival, and that's all they're looking forward to. So, and even in those places, Mexico, Brazil, and Kenya, you have people who, if you give them that kind of money, instead of trying to invest it in a business or do livestock or improve the thing, all they can do is go and spend it on something, maybe go on a vacation. maybe like to buy a car so they could show the friends they have a car or something like that. So I'm not sure what to say about this guy here or whoever wrote this article.